All right, y'all, we've got to talk about this video that's blowing up all over the internet about Beyoncé, and you won't believe how this is unfolding. A woman has stepped forward with claims involving her father, Terry Cooley. Now, if that name doesn't immediately ring a bell, let me remind you, Terry Cooley was Beyoncé's stage manager for more than 20 years. We're not talking about someone who popped in for a tour stop or two. No, this was a day one Destiny's Child era kind of presence, okay? He was instrumental in helping construct the powerhouse brand we see today. According to his daughter, Terry suffered an injury while working on tour with Mariah Carey, and when he later returned to Beyoncé's camp, she says he couldn't operate at the same capacity he once did before that injury. Because of that, he was reportedly dismissed. And again, this wasn't just a random crew member. He was deeply trusted and highly respected behind the scenes. She even uploaded a tribute-style video titled The Miss Carter Show, Go for Terry. That alone tells you the level of access and significance he held, not just to the production, but to Beyoncé personally. But before I dive into my thoughts on all this, let's go ahead and roll what his daughter had to say. Y'all listen closely.
My dad worked for Beyoncé again for a really long time. And throughout those years, he was, the stage production manager. And for those of you who don't know what that position entails, it's everything. She is known for putting on some of the most elaborate, amazing, beautiful tours, concerts ever. And my dad was at the heart of them. There's usually a couple different stage and production managers, one that designs the stage and controls the design of the stage, and then one who oversees the creation of the stage and the actual show, putting on the show, piecing everything together. And that is my dad. He is the heart and soul behind the Beyoncé that you guys know, behind the performances and the shows put on by the Beyoncé that you all know. Around a couple of years before COVID, maybe a year before COVID, my dad, who also tours with other people, whenever Beyonce's not on tour, he's toured with many, many other people. And so at the time, he was doing I believe a residency with Mariah Carey in Las Vegas. And there was an incident where, it's kind of complicated, but essentially he collapsed and he was having some issues with his neck, some pinched nerves. They had to take him to the hospital. He had to be taken off the residency. He came home. He ended up having to get surgery. It was a pretty big deal. But the diagnosis was essentially that my dad was overworked. And that's not by any fault, particularly of Beyoncé or anybody else. My dad's just a really hard worker. And going back, if you go watch this video, it will exemplify that. My dad worked, 22-hour days when he was on tour, and he'd be on tour for months at a time, traveling the world. So you go from airplane to tour bus to working 24-hour days, setting up, starting, closing down a show, sleeping for 3 hours, and then doing it in another city the next day. So my dad worked his ass off my entire life. And as a result, he ended up having some very extensive and severe physical trauma. So he ended up getting treated. He got his surgery, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, there were no tours, and my dad got paid on a as work basis. So when there's no tours, there's no money. And so during those couple of years during COVID, where there were no tours to be had, my dad had to use his savings to pay all of my family's bills, and that ran out. And so the house that my parents built when I was little and that I grew up in, my parents had to sell it because they didn't have any money. And so they sold their house and moved into my grandmother's house. And then less than a year later, the Hurricane Helene hit, and my grandmother's house flooded. And it flooded about 5 feet, and my parents were displaced. My grandmother went and moved into my aunt's house, and my parents, by the grace of God, literally, and our church and the connections in our small town, were able to move into a home owned by this man from our community who's been so kind to let them stay there for over a year, during which time my dad has done everything he can to fix the house, but financially, it's just, they're at a stopping point and they can't get back into their home. But nevertheless, going back into how this is relevant to Beyoncé, my dad spent a few years during COVID rehabilitating, and he never fully got back to, the physical ability level that he was at before his incident. But nevertheless, he rehabilitated himself extensively, and he was elated when he got a job opportunity to go with Beyoncé to a hotel opening, if I'm remembering correctly, in Dubai. And so, this was a big deal. This was the first time my dad had gone back out into the field since his injury. He was excited. He missed his work. He needed the money, right? So he goes out to Dubai, and I can't remember exactly how long he was out there for, but essentially, he got fired because of his physical state. The team that was working for Beyoncé at the time, and mind you, again, my dad has been not only on Beyoncé's team, but one of the head people in Beyoncé's team for 20 plus years since he was working with Destiny, since she was in Destiny's Child. They decided that he just wasn't keeping up enough because he couldn't walk fast enough and he couldn't move quickly enough, even though, there are plenty of positions that they could have given him where he could sit behind a desk and help design the stage, or, have fewer, maybe not be expected to work 24 hours straight, right? But rather than make accommodations, they made the determination to let him go. So long story short, here we are today in 2026, and my dad has been out of work for a few years, and they being my mom and dad, have hit a financial wall that my brothers and I can only help so much with, because this is the American economy, right? We have to take care of a million things. And I worry about my dad because he put his heart and his soul into Beyoncé's career, and other celebrities too, but primarily her. And they cut him loose and fired him after 20-something years of service, after he gave his health and his body to helping her succeed, and without so much as a livable or a substantial severance. So where we're at now is that my dad is suffering financially, and he's suffering emotionally because he was basically, my boyfriend compared it to Cam Newton the other night, if you're a football fan, but, those who know that, I guess Cam Newton said once that he knows in his mind that he's done playing football, but he doesn't know in his heart. And that's my dad. Sorry. So anyway, I'll make this short. My dad has given his all to his career, and the fact that it was cut short is really painful to him. And so that, plus the fact that financially it has crippled him, has put him in a terrible place that I never want to see someone that I love, let alone my dad, who I look up to and is the light of my life. So if you could go watch the video, that'd be great. And if you could tag Beyoncé and ask her to make things right with my dad, and maybe apologize for disregarding the career that they had, that would be great. I don't know. And if you have anything nice to say that I could pass along to...
Now, in my view, this situation really breaks down into two lanes. There's the legal reality, and then there's the moral conversation nobody wants to avoid. Terry Cooley wasn't classified as a standard employee. He operated as a 1099 independent contractor. That means he technically worked for himself. And when you're in that contractor category, the safety net looks very different. There's no employer-sponsored health coverage. There's no workers' compensation cushion. There's no disability package waiting in the wings. So essentially, you're out there betting on yourself, no backup plan. From a strictly legal standpoint, Beyoncé didn't violate anything. If his performance declined and didn't align with expectations, she was within her contractual rights to move on. But here's where it gets deeper. This man invested more than 2 decades into Beyoncé's rise. He was part of the foundation. So the real question is this: beyond contracts and paperwork, does loyalty deserve reciprocity? Should someone who poured that much time, sweat, and commitment into building an empire receive support when they fall on hard times? I want to hear your perspective on this because it's layered. That's all I've got for now, and we'll continue this conversation next time.